Hello,
Hello,
Asia.
Asia.
And hello, world.
I'm your
I'm
host,
your
John
host, John
Antiquera,
Antiquera,
and we are
and we
live
are
via
live via
ANFREL's
ANFREL's.
Facebook and LinkedIn pages, as well as via ANFREL's YouTube channel. Joining me today as co host is ANFREL Senior Program Officer for International Election Observation Mission, Manjesh Rana. Hi, Rana.
Hi, Rana.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for this opportunity for being your co host. And I don't have much of an experience of hosting any shows, but I sincerely hope I can match up to your energy.
No, of course, I know you'll do great. No, for this episode of the
Of
Election
the
Observer,
election observer,
we'll
we'll
discuss
discuss
promoting citizen observer rights. Forgive us for some technical difficulties. No, there is some feedback that we're working on it. I wanted to ask you first, Rana, before we introduce our guests. You've been part of ANFREL's international election observation missions for some time now. In your engagement with different election stakeholders, what has been the most striking remark that you have heard about their perception and idea about election observation?
Thank you, John. Yes, John, I have been fortunate to be part of several international election observation missions with ANFREL. In 2024 itself, I was part of Indonesia and two of our missions in Sri Lanka for the presidential and parliamentary elections. So as in of all the people that we speak with, we interact with, I believe that voters, they leave the deepest impression on me. During our last mission in Sri Lanka, I met a woman, and she told me that that she was extremely thankful, and she even said that this means a lot, as this is not even my country, and that really moved me because for her, our presence meant that someone was paying attention, that her voice mattered, and so of the other voters, and that the outside world or the international community really cared for them. So moments like this, again, they always remind me that the election observation is not merely a technical or procedural task, but it's an act of solidarity. And in places where people have been let down time and again, like in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or many other Asian countries or around the world, simply being there can offer a sense of reassurance, dignity, and hope.
Okay, thanks you for sharing that, Rana. No? Just like you, today we'll hear from our colleagues from the Global Network of Domestic Election Monitors, or GENDEM. It's a platform of over 250 citizen observer groups in more than 90 countries and territories to discuss the citizen observer rights and the issues and challenges that election observers and monitors face in strengthening and
and
protecting
protecting
democracy.
democracy.
Yes. And our guests today are Rindai Chipfunde Wawa, the Executive Director of Zimbabwe Election Support Network and a board member of the GNDEM, which stands for the Global Network of Domestic Election Monitors. And we have Zlatko Vuzobomic, the Executive Director of the European Network for Election Monitoring Organizations, ENEMO, and GNDEM Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Rendai and Zlatko. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. No? I
Good
think
afternoon. I think
uh, Zlatko is not yet here, but he will probably join us a bit later. But we have with us Rindai, and I hope you let me just fix my overlay. Yes, no. So we'll have first Rindai to in the show while we wait for Zlatko. So our first question for you, Rindai, no, can you share with us? We wanted to know, of course, the work that your organization is doing and what programs and activities you conduct in your country.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I wear two hats, as you can see behind my two banners. I'm the Executive Director for the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, and I'm also the host director for the regional network, which we call the Election Support Network of Southern Africa, which covers 14 countries in Southern Africa. So for the Zimbabwe Election Support Network, we're a coalition of 37 civil society organizations. We formed in 2000, and our vision is a Zimbabwe where a democratic electoral environment and the processes are upheld, and we promote democratic elections in Zimbabwe. In terms of the activities, what we do is election monitoring and observation. Since 2000, we've been monitoring all major elections in Zimbabwe. And also by elections. Then we also do public outreach in terms of urging the voters to participate. We also urge and campaign for peaceful elections, vote in peace campaigns. We also do media and information dissemination. Then we also do advocacy for electoral reforms, follow-ups on electoral reforms after the election. So this is what we do. Then under the Election Support Network of Southern Africa, it's a network which is in Southern Africa, and they were the host organizations. It's basically the same kind of work we do, election monitoring, but we also foster essential peer exchange, the dissemination of best practice within the region, and engaging also in workshops through capacity building, electoral academies, electoral reforms, and also gender equality within the region. So we play a very central role in terms of coordinating both the regional network of 15 non-governmental organizations, which are networks in different SADC countries, dedicated to strengthening democratic electoral processes across the SADC region. But importantly, we are also based in Zimbabwe, and we do similar kind of work. As you are aware, I'm also a board member for the Global Network of Domestic Election Monitors, GENDEM, and the ESN actively contributes to that global election observation standards as a steering committee member, and also take part in solidarity messages where observer networks are being attacked. But more importantly, we also share information with other global similar election observers networks like yourselves. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much for telling us about your organization and the programs and activities. My second question is, Rendai, have you encountered or monitored issues or challenges in observing or monitoring elections in your country or in your region? And if yes, then my follow-up question is that what are they and why do you think they persist?
There are a number of challenges which we faced since inception, and in my country is to do with the restrictive operating environment, whereby we face challenges in terms of accreditation. Sometimes accreditation is done late, and we also pay a fee for accreditation, which makes it difficult for observers to be accredited in numbers. Then we also face challenges in terms of attacks and the political violence, which during election time, it also includes attacks to our volunteers. In 2008, we had one of our observers killed. We had a number of observers being displaced and also beaten. Then the other challenge which we see is also in the terms of resource constraints. Like now, we are seeing dwindling resources in terms of funding for most of our work. Like the recent elections in Southern Africa, when we look at Mozambique, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, they didn't have a network of observers like we do. They were facing resources constraints. Then we also sometimes see the lack of political will, particularly when it comes to follow-ups on election observer recommendations. It's very difficult to engage and also advocate effectively in terms of the way forward. Then what we see, as I mentioned, is the weak institutional capacity of most of the domestic observer networks. They are transitional in nature. Some are temporary, they only exist during election time. After election time, you find that they are disbanded and they don't exist anymore. And one issue which I think you need to highlight is the attacks which happened to our observers in 2023 in Zimbabwe. We had set up a communication center which was raided by the police, and the volunteers were arrested. They went to court, and it took some months before they were released on the basis that there was no evidence. So that instills fear, and it takes away also the issue of voluntarism from most of the citizens, as they are scared of those consequences. So, in short, I think that's what I can say about the challenges faced by our observers in the region and also in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned about security of election observers, no, in your country. We would also like to ask you, how do you overcome these challenges? Particularly, you've also mentioned that it also affects the voluntarism of people. I guess it also deters people from joining election observation missions because there is a repercussion of on their security. So how do you overcome these challenges?
What we do every election is to train our observers in terms of security tips and also safety. Then we set up also legal teams and also medical teams. So there are organizations offering these services in terms of counseling services, psychosocial counseling, so that those observers which face retribution on their attacks, they go through some counseling. Those who are attacked, beaten, or need medical attention, they get help from such organizations. Then we do have our member also, which is offering legal services. So whenever our observers are beaten, denied attention, or face any issues which needs the legal attention, we do have a rapid response team from the lawyers to take up those particular challenges. Then what we also do sometimes is to set up an election situation room during the elections, which makes us able to collect really data, really time information, so that we can also then attend to the requests of our observers. But the other issue is that of engaging the Zimbabwe electoral commissions in the region, so that when problems do occur, we also relate to them and communicate with the respective officers to address certain technical irregularities and the technical challenges. And also, like if an observer is denied entry to the polling station, it's pointless for us to keep quiet and then write the report. So we ask the electoral commission to intervene so that they address some of those issues. And then we also advocate and continue to amplify the message from the UN Special Rapporteur on the need to recognize observers as human rights defenders. So post-election, even now, we think we need to all program around putting in place a safety fund, a human rights defenders fund, like the human rights defenders networks, which exist and they do have support and safe houses. We should also have such provisions for electoral observers, so that when they face challenges, there are safe houses, there are places they can go. If there is need to relocate, they can also go. I noted even under GENDEM, there are other countries where observers are made stateless. Some of the leaders have relocated to other countries. So they need to be support to assist in terms of challenges. And I noted in Sierra Leone, the leadership of new um, it's a national electoral observer network in Sierra Leone. When the leaders were attacked, they relocated to Ghana because there was support to do so in terms of traveling, accommodation, food, and sometimes it goes beyond just the leadership but their families. So they need to look into such provisions to be put in place so that when the observer networks, the volunteers don't feel safe, they can be able to relocate to places where they are, where there is safety.
Okay. My colleague Rana will be asking you later about um, how networks, international organizations of election observers help in of course protecting citizen observers. But let me just follow up first on your answer to my first question. No? Um, we recognize that there are issues, of course, and challenges for citizen observers. But in terms of, although you've also mentioned already some of the things that you're doing, but we wanted to ask, of course, like what best practices have you identified in terms of promoting the value and the work of citizen observers in your country, in your region also, and how do these efforts of promoting the value of observing elections the citizen observers as human rights defenders um, help in your advocacy to really push forward for protecting and upholding democracy and human rights.
What we noted in terms of the value of our work is the recent elections which were conducted in 2024. For example, in South Africa, we noted there was online accreditation of observers and there was no payment to get accredited. So that is best practice, which made it smoother for observers to go there. There was also no cherry picking in terms of whether you're invited or not. As long as you show interest and they send your request to the Electoral Commission, most organizations received accreditation. There was also safety in terms of the observers, and also observers had rights of access to all electoral processes. I remember I was one of the observers. We also managed to observe the special voting, which took place before the election day. On election day, we went all over the country. I didn't hear reports of observers being restricted access to any particular area or any particular electoral process. Then we also noted, even in terms of the technicality of how elections were conducted, the results management, the use of ICTs in election, open data in South Africa, the peaceful nature of elections in Botswana, Namibia. Then we saw the smooth power transfer in Botswana. I think those shows the value of election observation, that we promote credible elections, we promote peaceful elections, and that is happening within the region, which I think it's also showing the importance of the value of the work we do.
Let me hand it over to my colleague Rana. You are muted though.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rindai. You have shared like your experience and lots of challenges and issues. If I ask you to pick just one most significant challenge that basically stands out and one best practice that you want to share with our viewers, then what would it be? Best practice to overcome the challenges and the most significant challenge that you have experienced so far.
In relation to the elections we've seen in the region, one best learning aspect is that of, I think, the accreditation online. I liked it as it made it smoother and there was no payment. Then on the other side of the coin, the biggest challenge has been always accreditation of observers. That comes late. There is cherry picking of observers. We noted the reduction in terms of the observers in countries like Angola, in Mozambique, and also in Tanzania, and even in some of the African countries, observers are not invited on time. On the technical side, we liked also the results management we saw in South Africa, which is open. We also like the independent of the Electoral Commission again in South Africa. While it's the opposite is also true, most countries, they face the lack of independence in terms of the Electoral Commission. There is always criticism regarding perceived lack of independence, limited access to key electoral documents like the voters' rolls. We also noticed the challenges in ballot distribution exacerbated by copious litigations which took place. We saw in Namibia and Botswana, there were also logistical challenges and in terms of also shortages of ballot papers. So those are some of the challenges we see, mainly to do with the independence of the Electoral Commission. Where it is independent, we realize that there is less litigation, Then there is less disputes in terms of electoral related results issues or technical issues. But where there is also the perceived lack of independence within the electoral commission, it is associated with lots of problems, from lack of open data policies. There is no engagement of electoral stakeholders. There are shortages of materials. Sometimes the polling stations don't open on time. So we see a contrast. Some countries kind of making progress, while some countries are sort of retarding, going backwards.
Again, I think I can, with your response, I can definitely say this, that it's impossible to name only one particular challenge because there are so many. And I think this has also been ANFREL's experience with AMBs in particular. We observed that, in some countries the process is very smooth. They are, quite thorough with their practices. They have all the rules and procedure at place, and they make it very easy for us, especially the accreditation part. And in some other countries it becomes extremely difficult because the process itself is so complex that it sometimes defeat the whole purpose of observation, right? So we again believe that all these procedures, all these processes must be simplified, must be, made very easy, so that, it becomes easier for both domestic as well as international observers. I have another question for you, Rindai. There are global and regional organizations where different citizen observer groups come together to cooperate and collaborate. So, given the current situation and global context now, how important is it for the groups to unite?
As I
As I
mentioned,
mentioned,
the challenges of restrictive space in some countries and the dwindling resources, I think unification of global and the regional citizen observer groups is of paramount importance amid this democratic backsliding and threats to electoral integrity. A coordinated voice also strengthens advocacy for credible elections and promotes shared standards. If there are good aspects happening in some of these countries, then if you do have a coordinated approach, you can also share some of the good things. Then you go back to your countries and advocate for such. So platforms such as ANFREL, the Africa Domestic Observer Networks, GENDEM, they allow for sharing best practices and also develop common standards to counter some of these negative trends which we're talking about. Then there is also need, I think, in my view, to do joint proposals, to write proposals for peer learning, exchange, exchange staff exchanges, then also standardize the observation methodologies and sharing notes in terms of how we can be innovative now in view of dwindling resources, and it look at what works best, what doesn't work. Then there is also the need for joint advocacy and solidarity, which I mentioned. Sometimes when observers are under attack in one particular region, we need also to issue a solidarity from the other parts of the world. There is also need for rapid response mechanisms, as I mentioned. If observers are under attack, there is need to assist in terms of safe houses, legal or medical. Then the most other important aspect is that of shared data platforms. We need to improve. You started with this podcast. I think we need to also next time to see different representation from all over the world. That way we can then hear and get to know what is happening in all parts of the world. There is also a possibility for joint training on different topics. Like now, there is the issue of artificial intelligence. We might need perhaps to look in terms of how it impacts on elections, but more importantly, how it also impacts on election observation. And lastly, maybe we can also do jointly in terms of public awareness campaigns, where we pick a theme, um, like human rights for domestic observers or human rights for election observers. Then we rally with that theme from Asia, Africa, the US, and everywhere. So I think that's what we can do in terms of some of the aspects, in terms of having a coordinated joint approach and a coordinated unified electoral observer networks.
Thank you, Rendai. You have like also highlighted some programs and activities that all these platforms can provide. Would you give some example from GNDEM as well, your own efforts when it comes to providing support to the other organizations?
Yes,
Yes,
indeed.
indeed.
We conducted joint advocacy campaigns, for example, when observers were under attack in Sierra Leone. We issued also a solidarity message in Georgia, in Serbia, in Mozambique. As GENDEM, we issued also statements in terms of offering solidarity to the citizens and to the observer groups which were under attack. And I remember in Zimbabwe, when we had that raid mission to in 2023 and our volunteers arrested, we received lots of solidarity message from the UN, from the different embassies in Zimbabwe, from different observer organizations and networks all over the world. So that is one example which we also received. We also now do have a network we're trying to set up, the Africa Election Observer Network. Last week in Kenya, we're doing a lot of peer learning. It was a peer learning, a learning academy where we were sharing the recent elections and the upcoming elections in the region in terms of the patterns, the trends. So those are some of the examples where we're now sharing information, what works, what doesn't work, and how we can improve our work and visibility.
That's nice to hear, Rendino. And I also agree about what you said that I think there's also a need to give platform to other organizations in the GenDem network about the work that we're doing because it's important really to send a message to let people know about what election observers are doing in terms of protecting and upholding democracy and electoral democracy in particular, no, because um, I guess for many of the electorate they only for them they in their heads they only see us during elections, but there are a lot of different work that member organizations, other election observer groups are doing to promote electoral democracy. And it's nice to be given opportunities, of course, to be heard of these efforts. And I agree with that. That's why we're having this episode. And we, of course, look forward to more collaboration with GenDem and the members in the network. So hopefully get more episodes about what other organizations are doing around the world uh, so yes, I agree about that. Unfortunately, we only have one. Our second guest did not is not yet here, and we are already in our last part of the episode. But thank you, Rindino, for answering all the questions that we have. So we are entering our closing segments. This is for me my favorite part because it's my own doing. If you've seen previous episodes of the show, we try to have our closing segment to be a bit more light and fun, uh, so that there's something that people can look forward to as well and join in the conversation later on social media. No, so for this particular segment in this episode, um, we wanted to have some call of action. So let me read out what I wrote about this segment. So part of the tools that election observers and monitors have in the field are the election observer vests. I will join in the question. I am ready. If you also have seen previous episodes, I like props. No. They are used not just for visibility purposes, but also for their utilitarian function. Because they have like um, pockets in there and other things. So for the closing segment of the show, we have asked our guests, no, if you could design, this is a design challenge. If you could design an election observer or monitor vest that would promote citizen observer rights, one, what would be the short tag that you will put at the back of the vest? And two, what would be the utilitarian functions that they would have? I hope Rana is also prepared to ask this question, but we'd go with you first, Rinday.
Okay, I think for me, the short tag will be credible elections, impartial observer.
Mm-hmm.
The credible elections impartial observer imprint on the vest aims to empower citizen observer in the region, and the tag underscores the vital role in ensuring credible and trustworthy electoral processes through professionalism, impartiality, and also neutrality. I think that's what is important, because sometimes the accusations that observers are funded by foreigners, hence they push the Western agenda, and sometimes they're stooges of opposition political parties. So when you put that emphasis on impartial observer, it takes away the message that we are stooges of somebody else. And I think you can see some of our t-shirts here. This is an observer. What we also put sometimes these messages, and I think we can also now put a tag. Then in terms of the regional level, under the election support network, with also jackets like these ones, which were written ESN, election observer. I think we are now going to put a tag. The front part is not really dramatic, it's just the logo. So I think we can also put now the short tag credible observer somewhere. Then under Zesni, we use a different color also here, Zesni observer. And this one has got lots of empty space to put our tag. So from this, I think we are also getting new ideas to put now a tag in terms of what we stand for and what we hope to achieve by the end of the day. So we stand for credible elections, but we want by and all means to remain impartial.
Okay, that's nice. So it's nice to see your vests and shirt. How about you, Rana? What would be the design of your election observer vest?
Honestly, John, I wasn't really prepared for this particular segment, but I'll definitely answer this. And again, this is also the most exciting part. Not because of it comes towards the end and we are about to get done with it, but also because this is the most exciting and most engaging. For the tagline, I would say that I always believed that I may not sound very down to earth, but I believe that election observers are not less than superheroes, right? So, taking inspiration from Marvels, I would say that the tagline could be the guardians of democracy, something like that. And what was the second part, John?
The second one is, what utilitarian functions would they have?
Okay, okay. For that, I would say that there could be something similar to, like, having a pocket where we can have mini medical kit, right? And another thing could be, if there is a possibility, I'm not sure about the technological advancements, but if we can have some solar USB charger because our observers are always out of battery and they need to fill up the forms throughout the day. So just see, we have the Philippines mission, upcoming Philippines mission, John. So if you can add these features, that would be great.
I think that part I didn't answer. The utilitarian functions for us will be the accreditation card, which they display to reinforce legitimacy. This is like a passport or a visa for observers to get into the polling station. Once you are accredited also by the Electoral Management Board, you find that you've got access, you are safe, and they can go anywhere within the country and then the region. Then the checklist, especially now using iPads online, it's very faster way to do impartial data collection, and sometimes using mobile phones, SMS systems. So having a checklist which is online, it's also one of the issues. Then the other issue is that you offer the t-shirt, bright colors, easily visible, written in large font. The same applies to observer jacket with logos. It's a good way to also give visibility to that observer, but also contributing to professionalism and ethically to credible elections processes.
That's nice to hear, and I know. For me, I'm wearing my vest right now. um, what do you call this? I actually did. I failed to answer my own questions, but I have have a different approach to it. No, because I don't know if you were able to watch Disney movies Up, the one with the old guy and the one with the like a Boy Scout who was seeking for his wilderness badge. So I was thinking of that concept of having badges on the vest. So I made um, a sticker pack of badges
Okay.
for the election observers. So first of the pack is of course the name. I've noticed that our vests don't have our names in them, but then it's also while we have our accreditation cards, it's nice to have like a name card or a nameplate on the vest itself.
Mm-hmm.
One. And then during the Sri Lanka mission, I was able to work our Sri Lanka mission and for Sri Lanka mission. I was able to work with first time international election observers. So in terms of the badge that I've mentioned earlier, for first time observers, I've created several pins. Like for example, if for the first time you've interviewed an electoral stakeholder, so you will get an interview badge that you can put on your vest. And then there are several other badges as well, like if you were able to listen to a campaign jingle, or if you were able to take photos of a campaign activity. So you get to wear badges on your vest, and to show to people as well that you've been doing your job and you've been um, taking all the necessary steps in your election observation. So finally, after the end of the mission, once you're back from your deployment and you've completed all the mini badges, you get a one big badge called like this one, an election observer badge, which you can put on your short here.
Mm.
So like it's a concept of achieving something and marking those achievements and showing to people that hey, I observed this election. So that's for me.
You look like a security personnel.
Oh, a fireman.
But yeah, that's the concept that I wanted to have like a badge. I don't know if Briza, our executive director of ANFREL, is listening, so maybe you can consider our suggestions for the Philippine mission. No badges.
I like this badge here on the shoulder.
It's
I think
nice, right?
yeah, it's very nice and very visible.
Yes. So that's my concept and that's my answer for the show.
Yeah, come
Um,
and
that is our last question.
And it would be
Brenda.
really nice, John, like to have mission specific badges at the end. So I would have collected three so far, but maybe we can start with Indonesia 2024, right? So if you have any plans of preparing badges, then start preparing it from 2024 itself. Maybe. Priza, are you listening?
I actually also thought because as a regional organization we observe elections in different countries. Like after each observation you get a country specific badge. Like oh, I will observe the 2019 election in Sri Lanka. Right?
that reminds me, yesterday I had a small circle badge, yes, with a pin. So that one you can use it beyond the election also.
Yes, that's right. Um, so
But you
that has
haven't really spoken about the utilitarian functions.
no, I agree with you about the charger. But my utilitarian function is that to have a pocket for hydration, like a water bottle pockets.
Yeah,
Because that's important. You need to be hydrated.
I like this one.
Yes, like that
And
one.
the return election observer or Zesni, we got also caps which we use and the hats. I think I can bring some quickly. The caps and hats is just to show you that sometimes you can also use mugs, but also the hats when it's hot and umbrellas. We did a lot of some of that regalia which we also use for the visibility of observers.
That's good. Um, I don't know if just last for me, I've seen this in US movies, no, the one with the hats and then like bottle of waters on the side, and then you put a straw. That could be fun.
Yes.
Yes, again, thank you, Rinday, for joining us today. Silatko unfortunately wasn't able to join this afternoon's live stream of the Election Observer, but thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was very useful, but also important for networking, getting to know each other, and sharing ideas and experiences. Thank you very much.
That's true. We hope to meet you in person soon. No?
Yeah, for sure. When we do have activities from this end, I hope that we can get support to bring either you or Rana also to this part of the world.
Great. Again,
Thank you,
thank
Rindai. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Have a good
Have a
day.
good day. We'll have to remove you from the stream to formally close the show. But again, thank you, Rinday.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, so thank you, Rinday, for joining us today. And that has been the Election Observer episode on promoting citizen observer rights and the issues and challenges that election observers and monitors face in strengthening and protecting democracy.
Thank you for listening and watching this entire show. Get the latest news and updates about ANFREL programs and activities through our social media platforms: Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok pages, wherever the TikTok is not banned, of course. You can also subscribe to our YouTube and WhatsApp channels.
Before I let you go, Rana, no, because we still have some time, uh, I just wanted to ask you about your experience today. How was it?
Uh, it was very nice. Honestly, I was little nervous because as I told you initially, I've never really hosted any show, and but I think you are amazing, and so was our guest. So I was quite comfortable, and really enjoyed the entire conversation because the whole show was very conversational. And obviously the last segment was the most innovative one, and sometimes when I don't have time to watch the whole episode, I make it a point to join this at least for the last 10 minutes. You have always been like very creative, very innovative, and in fact the show on Women's Day, it was my personal favorite, like all the questions that you asked from the Miss Universe segment. And the one reason was also because you included Miss Universe from India, and the event was actually hosted in Philippines, Manila. So you took care of both your and my country.
Of course, I always think about India as well. No, I'm glad that you liked that episode. But thank you for co-hosting today, Rana. We will see you again in the next episode because you will be the guest for the next episode. We haven't announced the next episode yet, but I'm telling everyone here that you will still see Rana for the next episode. Thank you for joining us again. I'm John Antiquera, your host.
And I'm Manjesh Rana, co-host of John. Amazing John. Thank you. Thank you so
And have a
much.
great day, everyone. Of course.
Have a great day, everyone. So sorry, I'm really bad at co-hosting, John.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.